Number 1, Mansa Musa. Wealth, incalculable. Mansa Mousa, who ruled the Malian Empire, lived from 1280 to 1337, considered the richest man of all time. Indeed, he knew how to conquer Timbuktu and extend his empire to Niger, and therefore the most important trade routes of the trans-Saharan trade. He lived from 1280 to 1337 and is considered the king of Timbuktu because of his influence on the city's commerce and culture. He also owned the Bambuk gold mines, which account for more than 50% of world supply today. Its territory produced half of the world's gold stock. So it is not hard to believe that his wealth cannot be expressed in dollars, euros, or any other amount or currency. During his pilgrimage to Mecca, he took 60,000 people with him, each carrying nearly 2 kilograms of gold, and dozens of camels, weighing around 125 kilograms each, to distribute the fortune to the poor and mosques along the way. Number 2, Augustus Caesar. Wealth, $4.6 trillion. Not only was Augustus Caesar in charge of an empire that accounted for 25% to 30% of the world's economic output, but according to Stanford history professor Ian Morris, Augustus at one point held personal wealth equivalent to 1/5 of his empire's economy. That fortune would be the equivalent of about $4.6 trillion in 2014. For a while, Morris adds, Augustus personally owned all of Egypt. That's hard to top. Number 3, Emperor Shenzong. Wealth, ruled empire with 25% to 30% of global GDP. China's Song dynasty, 960 to 1279, was one of the most economically powerful empires of all time. According to Professor Ronald A. Edwards, a Chinese economic historian of the Song dynasty at Tamkang University, the nation accounted for between 25% and 30% of the world's economic output during its peak. The empire's wealth came from both its technological innovations and extreme skill at tax collection, which Edwards says was hundreds of years ahead of European governments. The professor also noted the Song dynasty's government was highly centralized, meaning the emperor held enormous control over the economy. Number 4, Akbar I. Wealth, ruled empire with 25% of global GDP. Akbar I, also known as Akbar the Great, was India's third Mughal emperor, from 1556 to 1605. His territory was approximately at the level of present-day India and accounted for 25% of the world's GDP. The Mughals used the Mansabdar system. That is, territories over which an officer is appointed to raise income from the land. In return for this income, the emperor may require soldiers depending on the size of the territory. These officers were not chosen hereditarily, which left Akbar a great deal of leeway. Reigning over 15 such provinces, the empire proved extremely beneficial for the emperor for collecting taxes, which contributed to his wealth. Number 5, Hazrat Abdurrahman bin Auf. Wealth, $606 billion. Hazrat Abdurrahman bin Auf was the richest companion of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, with a net worth of 84,000 dinars, which is around $606 billion today. Number 6, Joseph Stalin. Wealth, complete control of a nation with 9.6% of global GDP. Stalin is an uncommon figure in modern economic history, a dictator with absolute power who also controlled one of the largest economies in the world. While it is virtually impossible to separate Stalin's wealth from the wealth of the Soviet Union, his unique combination of economic might and complete control of the USSR lead multiple economists to nominate him as one of the richest people of all time. You can easily see their logic. Data from the OECD shows that in 1950, 3 years before Stalin's death, the USSR made up roughly 9.5% of global economic output. As of 2014, that level of production would be equivalent to nearly $7.5 trillion. Number 7, Andrew Carnegie. Wealth, $372 billion. The Scottish-American businessman and philanthropist, Andrew Carnegie, built his fortune in the 19th century, who died in 1919. Andrew Carnegie left the oil industry to Rockefeller and focused on the steel industry with the Carnegie Steel Company. His fortune is estimated at $372 billion at the time. With his wealth, he built over 1,600 public libraries in the United States. In his eyes, it was important to invest in knowledge, and he also injected tens of millions of dollars into American education. Before he died, Andrew spent the last few years of his life as a philanthropist and donated 90% of his fortune to charities, universities and other organizations. Number 8, John D. Rockefeller. Wealth, $341 billion. During the 20th century, this famous billionaire and oil tycoon, John Davison Rockefeller, controlled 90% of the flow of black gold, oil. He died in 1937 at the age of 97. The creation of the Standard Oil Company, the largest oil company in the United States. During that time he owned 90% of all the oil. The company was divided into 34 small businesses. Among these still exist ExxonMobil, Chevron and BP. John D. Rockefeller was also the first man to raise $1 billion. Converted, his fortune would come to about $341 billion. After the First World War, he has spent a lot of money for good causes and invested $250 million in his own organization, the Rockefeller Foundation. Number 9, Elon Musk. Wealth, $335 billion. It is no secret that Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk is the richest person in the world. As of 2021, Elon Musk's net worth rose to $335 billion. Though his net worth is now down to $244 billion in January 2022, but he is still the richest person in the world. Number 10, Nikolay Alexandrovich Romanov. Wealth, $300 billion. Nikolay Alexandrovich Romanov is also known as Nicholas II, the last Emperor of Russia and King of Poland and Grand Duke of Finland. He ruled the Russian Empire from 1894 to 1917 when Bolshevik revolutionaries overthrew and murdered him and his family. In 1916, Tsar Nicholas II's net worth was nearly $900 million, which when adjusted with inflation, was equivalent to $300 billion in 2012.